CISOs have got a huge number of challenges nowadays, but there's a real kind of cultural one problem that they've got in that quite a lot of them have developed a very deep security skill set and find it very challenging when the business comes to them and says, we need to adopt this new technology. We need to connect together our operational technology and our enterprise systems, because we find it of value to link our asset databases or our ERPs through to our SCADA systems, or it could be the same thing kind of happens in banking. It's those information flows, that connectivity is kind of inevitable. And the CISO stood there and he knows the vulnerabilities that that's going to introduce to his organisation. And the temptation is is not say no right away, but eventually I'm going to say no because this is just too vulnerable. The problem is that it's kind of an unstoppable wave, this connectivity. When the chief operating officer knows that by connecting these systems together, he can cut his maintenance costs by 50%, or he can increase his customer base by kind of similar kind of percentages, it's going to happen because it's an inevitable financial equation. The business case for the connectivity is too strong. The problem is okay, so you might not get an incident this year, again, kind of encouraging the chief operating officer to carry on, but you might get the incident the following year. And the thing is, if like in Target's incident, the CEO gets fired, the chief security guy is going with him, whether he said yes or no. So there's this kind of really unpleasant dilemma that security officers have got, and the cultural change there is, first of all, empathise with the business, work out what the business case is for connectivity, and then work through what security solutions might exist to make that connection happen in a way that's in a risk-managed way. You introduced the term of risk management. It's in a risk-managed way, so you accept the risk, but you understand you've got the controls in place, doing the best possible job you can from a control perspective, and you also have the ability to respond quickly and accurately if things go wrong. So you're monitoring it, and you've got that kind of instant response capability ready for and trained. So, I mean, those are just three examples of kind of personas, but I sometimes find it's useful to talk about the individual and individual profiles when looking at security.
We agree that it is very challenging to address this weakest link at the enterprise, at an organizational level. How can we tackle this, and this is for Samir, how can we tackle this at the grassroots level, where awareness is raised in the universities, colleges, so that we work towards a safer society in Qatar? What do entities like MICT do for this?
Well, thank you for that question. It's interesting. Like I mentioned earlier, developing capacity, increasing awareness forms a kind of an important or one of the key objectives of the National Cybersecurity Strategy. What we have been doing is we have a kind of, again, a comprehensive program on that. We have been working closely with some of the universities, including like Qatar University, where we kind of interact with their students in information technology. We've been also working with other colleges, kind of driving home the importance of information security and kind of building careers, kind of advising students on what are the career paths going ahead kind of thing. Working with colleges, kind of helping them build this kind of graduation programs kind of thing, advising them on that. So that's on a grassroots level, because we believe from a long-term perspective, this is what we need. As a nation, for Qatar, we need to have this kind of infrastructure available in terms of, let's say, opportunities for doing graduations or post-graduation studies in information security, so that we have the right capacity in the near future kind of thing. In the short term, what we have been doing is we have been working, like I said earlier, we interact closely with our critical stakeholders kind of thing. Based on a number of requests that we have received, we do a number of one-on-one kind of security awareness sessions for, let's say, senior executive management, employee level kind of thing, where we kind of drive home the point of why information security is important, how it can benefit the organization, and what are the ROIs kind of thing on that. So there are different kinds of initiatives that we have been doing. We also kind of work a lot on in terms of imparting trainings for driving the technical abilities kind of thing. So that's another area that we work on. I think Simon talked about an interesting point about understanding the cultural what's the culture of the organization kind of thing, and this is very important kind of thing, because again we believe like when we kind of look at Qatar from a national perspective, we believe again this has been one of the major issues kind of thing, the social culture awareness kind of thing, the existing culture. Qatar has been a very safe and secure society kind of thing. So there is still that perception, a lot of perception among a number of people that okay, we are a secure community, we are a safe country, nothing is going to happen here, till a few years back kind of thing, and which really kind of set up a chain reaction kind of thing. We all heard about RAS gas kind of thing, and the kind of reaction that it elicited in the energy sector kind of thing. So this is very important kind of thing to work with the organizations and kind of ensuring that they understand information security from a cultural perspective. We often land up during our discussions kind of thing where we I think about a year or 2 years back we had this kind of interesting anecdote. We were speaking to one of the organizations about the CIIP law. The guys were very excited kind of thing. They were very kind of yes, we need it and everything. And 2 days later, we received a call from the guy saying, okay, all that was fine, but what's gonna cost us? What do you mean what's gonna cost us? Okay, if we don't comply, what is gonna cost us? What are the fines that you guys are kind of contemplating in this law and this kind of thing? So we need to kind of beat this culture back kind of thing. We need to beat this theory back, because it's not only about paying fines or something. Because at the end of the day, it's about kind of securing the critical infrastructure. It's beyond kind of at times, looking beyond just your industry or just your organization and taking the national interest into consideration.
Thanks, Samir. I know telecoms play a vital role using social media and raising this awareness, where we have this segment dedicated to raise awareness at a national level. With that, I'd like to open the floor to questions. If we have our attendees want to ask some questions to the panel.
Hi, Mark Dacier. I work for QCRI. I lead the cybersecurity research there. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the quality of the panel and all the people who have clearly a broad and deep experience in the field. I'd like to throw a kind of a controversial question, just to warm us up a bit. 15 years ago, we had the first DDoS attack. Last year, we had a huge surge in DDoS attacks. There are tons of mitigation solutions existing, products, services. Who is not doing his job, right? And I've been working in security for 20 years, and frankly speaking, I think I have a great career in front of me because things are getting worse and worse and worse. It's a great business. Everywhere I look at, a few years ago we used to say, how can we build computer systems this way? We should do this the way people build cars, because there it's reliable. And now when I'm looking at cars, I see, hey, they can be hacked too. So it's getting worse. And next step is what? Planes, trains, what is it? Even if you look around critical infrastructure, big data analytics push, everybody wants now to have data from a critical infrastructure to do some number crunching somewhere. So what used to be air-gapped is not air-gapped anymore, right? It's getting worse. And even if you look at your newest smartphone, Windows operating system, whatever operating system you think of, I cannot really say they are really learning a lot from what has been done in terms of insecurity. And on top of that, we put a new layer of problems, which is privacy. So if we look at the big picture, do you really see things going better? And what has to be done to really make things change?
Who wants to take that? We've got a gloomy picture that Mark has just created. Let's see who can bring it out.
Well, I'll just make a quick comment there. It may be gloomy, but it's an accurate portrayal of the situation,
True.
Absolutely. So will it get better? Most likely not. Will it get worse? Most likely. Does it ensure job security for us? Yes, it does. But nevertheless, it's about continuing to progress and adapt and react to the changing environment, and that's what we do.
Farouk?
Yeah, thank you for that. Basically, I think The issue, I think you picked it up right at the end, it's the level of complexity is increasing tremendously. Yeah? The amount of devices that are now connected to the network it's crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. The amount of data going through the networks is crazy as well. I mean, we see it on I'm sure Uridio and ourselves on a monthly basis in Qatar. The traffic is going through the roof. Yeah. So what that does is add a lot of complexity. So you can start covering small bits and pieces that we have been doing. So over the years we have made progress. There's no doubt about it. But we get thrown back when you add more complexity, more new systems and things like that. So there is no silver bullet. I mean, I think once you've been in the industry, you know there is no silver bullet. Yeah, you've got to just work it out bit by bit. Some of the things that I think are positive are some of the mobile ecosystems. I think they're becoming much better. So if I look at, for example, the way the Apple iOS works, the security around that is much better than you get on a desktop. So you've got sandboxing, you've got good memory protection, you've got all these technical things which, consumers may not be interested, but that's what protects them. So coming from a software engineering background, I think that's really the key. If we go down and make sure that the software that we build is kept secure, is designed securely from the onset, that's how we will fix it. DDoS you mentioned, what's happened is we started with volumetric DDoS, and we put in the protection of that, and then you find out, well, actually that's not the problem, It's actually a smaller set of DDoS attacks, and this is the thing, it's always evolving. So you've got to make sure you also evolve the controls. Now, again, it does go back to the point about if you can protect what you think is most important, you protect that. And the rest, you have to live with it, unfortunately.
I would like to add to what Farooq just said, kind of thing. I think to the question you mentioned, you asked like who is responsible for this. I think we all are responsible for this. I would just like to kind of flip the question kind of thing in this sense, like as customer, what have you been doing about it? Have we been as customers kind of proactive in asking for secure applications or secure equipments or things like that? We haven't been really asking for that. So like what Farooq said, like, if the kind of the developers develop secure applications, probably the problem would have been half of what we are facing right now. A part of the reason why most of the manufacturers or developers do not do that is because we have not been asking for that. We are okay with anything. We are okay with Microsoft dishing out, like, no offense to Microsoft, it's for all the applications. But Microsoft again has kind of, over a time when they realize they have changed their track, now they are trying to kind of evolve and have a program which will ensure more secure program development kind of thing. So I think this is the key point over here is, I think we should also be doing our part. As a customers, you should be asking, specifically like in your critical infrastructure, you should be ensuring that your contracts, when you kind of ask for systems, they are secure. You should ensure that when those systems are deployed in the first place, they are tested for security flaws, they are resistant, they are resilient kind of thing, and hopefully that will help us build a more resilient and secure infrastructure.
Before you go on, Simon, another take on that is that it's all about effective incident response, at least from the telecom perspective, what we've seen. You got to kill the fallacy that we are never going to be compromised. It's how fast you respond to minimize the damage. I think that's a key aspect that we follow today. You can never be 100% secure, and the bad guys are always ahead of us. Simon.
As always, a very accurate kind of assessment, Mark. So I think it gets back to my point about responsibility, quite a lot of this. What's the right way to get those? And I'm kind of speaking to the wrong people, because everybody's here because they're concerned about cybersecurity. The problem is those who ultimately control the budgets, who control the strategy from the business perspective, that drives a lot of the cybersecurity issues. Those guys might not care about it enough, or might not understand it enough to care about it. And what's the right way to get them to care about it? And I think there's a bit of a danger if we talk to non-cybersecurity professionals about how bad things are. It just turns them off, and like I said before, they will just crack on doing things which just makes the whole situation worse, rather than taking responsibility for really understanding the risk and putting the measures into place to combat it. And I think I talked earlier about criminals, activists, and state-sponsored threats from espionage. didn't even cover the likes of terrorists, who really are only scratching the surface of cybersecurity. I mean, they've used it a little bit for recruitment and propaganda, but they've hardly used it at all to exploit systems. And there's an example in the UK, and this went through the courts. There was a British Airways employee who is very capable IT guy, and they used him to smuggle things through the systems. They did not use him to compromise any of the safety critical systems or any of the operational systems. So there is a problem there, that there's certain actors who would want to do an awful lot of harm to these organisations who haven't really understood the possibilities of cyber. Again, but doing that, telling those kind of stories to the operational guys, it's kind of feeding the fear, uncertainty and doubt, which actually doesn't help them deal with the risk. So I think all I'd urge is for those who are looking at security to try what is very hard and cut through both the fear, uncertainty and doubt, but also this issue that cybersecurity is a new industry. It's something that's just starting out. You've got all the startups on the West Coast. Everybody's now a cybersecurity product vendor. Everybody's got some latest, greatest cybersecurity thing. So there is an awful lot of marketing hype that's being generated, and cutting through that can be very difficult. So there's part of it that's waiting that out, and I'm hoping that's going to get better. As any industry, it's going to start to consolidate down, and it's going to become a little bit more cohesive. You're going to have less trouble monitoring across all of your different security solutions, and you're going to be able to integrate it all together better, or identify organisations that can integrate it for you. I'm hoping that situation, the market offerings are going to get better from that perspective. But in terms of the innovation of the threat, all the evidence is that that's going to get worse. So the security community, industry, government, they've all got to work together to, academia as well, they've all got to work together to solve the problem, because the threat is always going to be very, very smart, very quick and very innovative. So only by working together and collaborating is the other side, the good side, going to start getting on top of it.
We've got time for a couple of more questions maybe. One more? All right. Naveen says one more.
Good morning. My name is Yasser Hamza. I'm from Qatar Petrochemical Company. Since we are talking about critical information infrastructure protection, there is a subject that was like an industry fad a few years back. It was about operationalization of security, So what happened to that? So a few years back, everyone was talking about, okay, let's operationalize security. Let's not make it a central function. Let's not focus on intrusion detection, firewalls, all of these, point solutions. Let's make it kind of like, I work for a petrochemical company, so I can drive, some analogies from HSE. Okay, so HSE, they make it the responsibility of everyone during their normal operations to be safe, to protect the company from incidents that are affecting the safety. So we are always coming up with analogies from other areas for security. So what happened to that? How successful do you think we are in making security an operational aspect? It's in the job description of everyone. It's okay, I am a service desk, let's say service desk operator. I have my security responsibilities. I understand them very well. I know that if I mess things up, okay, there are consequences to me and to the company. I am a software developer. Some of you come from software engineering, so I have my security responsibilities. I don't introduce, silly bugs like SQL injection or those kind of things. And so, how successful are we in this? Because from my point of view, we're still having this central security management approach, and everyone thinks that, okay, the security guy is responsible for security, which is not the same for HSE, because people understand that safety is not the responsibility of HSE, okay? So that's my question.
For the benefit of the other members, the question is, how successful is the concept of operationalizing security? I think, Claudio, you are from a similar sector to the gentleman there. You want to take this?
Yeah. Well, a couple different angles, right? Just briefly talk about the IT-OT convergence, just for a moment before we go into the meat of what you're talking about. You know, IT-OT convergence is like a white elephant in the room. You know, IT security people, InfoSec people want to get into that space to help the operational technology people better secure their environments, but the OT people want to keep us out. They don't want us involved with their critical infrastructure. So that's a whole other discussion. But as far as operationalizing the security, it's a mindset issue that will continue to be reinforced by the awareness training, making sure people understand that it's their responsibility, that they are responsible for it. The HR policies will help if you incorporate the InfoSec elements in that. The acceptable usage policy will help with that element. But as far as with the IT people themselves, like you mentioned, help desk, part of the problem with the level 1 or potentially level 2 support is that they may not understand when something is actually a security incident. There's very little distinction between a security incident versus a normal computer problem initially, right? And it may not be until it escalates to level 3 support that it's identified as a security incident. So the IT field has its own issues with operationalizing security because of the level of understanding and how security incidents can be masked by other aspects. So I'm not sure if that really helps you, but basically it's a long road to follow. But as far as the individuals, the employees, general staff, it's about just continuing to reinforce that.